I got the message 2 minutes after landing. No punctuation, no hello, just, don't come home, I'm done. You lost them, you lost me. 12 words, that's all it took to end 12 years of marriage. The terminal buzzed with reunions, wives running into open arms, children screaming, "Daddy!" I stood still, clutching a duffel bag heavier with memory than gear. I'd spent the last 9 months in the desert, dodging bullets and making impossible choices. And now, back on American soil, I was already an outsider in my own life. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say that wouldn't explode. She wanted silence? I'd give her the coldest kind. My brother Luke was waiting outside in the pickup, tapping the steering wheel like a metronome. He hadn't smiled when I approached, just stared at me, reading the look on my face. "You okay?" he asked. "She left," I said. His hands stopped tapping. Damn. We didn't say anything for a while. That's how we handled pain in our family. We boxed it up, sealed it, and stacked it in a corner no one talked about. By the time we got to his place, I'd checked my bank account. Cleaned out. Not just mine, our joint one too. She hadn't just left. She'd made sure I came back to nothing. "She sent you that today?" Luke asked, pouring me a drink. "Right after touchdown." "Classy." He handed me the glass, then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and tossed it on the table. I raised an eyebrow. "My turn, I guess," he muttered. "Friend just sent me a video from the office party last night. Amy, with the boss." I didn't ask what kind of video. I knew that tone. The kind where everything you thought was yours crumbles in the time it takes to blink. "She was supposed to be homesick," he added, then took a long sip from his drink like he was trying to burn her out of his throat. So that's how it happened. Two brothers sitting in a small living room with the taste of betrayal still fresh, watching their lives rot from the inside. "Cheers," he said bitterly, holding up his glass. I tapped mine to his. That night, neither of us slept. He paced the porch like he was waiting for a storm that had already hit. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every conversation with my wife over the last 6 months. All the little hesitations, the pauses that should have said more, the fake smiles on grainy video calls. We had one rule between us: no lies, even if the truth hurts. She broke that before I ever stepped on the plane. By morning, Luke was already halfway to self-destruction. I knew the look, anger with nowhere to go. "You want to go for a drive?" I asked. "Where?" "I don't care, just not here." We ended up on the highway with no direction. We drove past cornfields, empty motels, and diners that hadn't seen a crowd since the 90s. After an hour of silence, he finally spoke. "I thought we had something solid, you know? We had our fights, sure. But this?" He paused. "You ever think you knew someone so well and then realize they were planning their exit months in advance?" I didn't answer, because yes, I knew exactly what that felt like. We stopped for gas. While he filled the tank, I went inside for coffee. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, one photo, my wife, my former boss. Dinner, smiles, hand on thigh. Luke saw my face when I came out. "What now?" "They're together," I said. It wasn't random. It's been going on a while. He didn't flinch, just nodded slowly. "You know what's funny?" he said. "You and I are trained to respond under pressure, right? Firefights, ambushes, whatever. But this kind of betrayal?" He exhaled. "No manual for that." We sat in silence for a long moment, and then I said what neither of us had dared to. "I'm not going to let them walk away clean." His eyes met mine. Neither am I. That was the moment something shifted between us. Not rage, not revenge. Something sharper. Focus. We didn't need to break things. We needed to expose things. Every lie, every cover-up, every game they thought they'd win. They took our trust, our love, our names. Now we take theirs. We didn't go back to Luke's house after that. The idea of returning to the same rooms where they lied to us felt like weakness. We got a cheap weekly rental on the edge of town. No questions asked. One bed, one couch, a fridge that hummed like it was angry. It was enough. I spent the first night staring at the ceiling again, not from pain, from calculation. I'd spent years organizing logistics for field ops halfway across the world, getting men in and out of hostile zones, tracking supply routes under blackout. Now I just needed to adapt those same skills to a different battlefield, one where the enemy wore suits instead of uniforms and smiled while they gutted you. I started with my wife. Her name's Rachel. I haven't said it out loud since I landed. She hadn't just left me, she'd planned it. That kind of precision doesn't happen by accident. The bank withdrawals had started 3 weeks before my return. The utilities had been shifted to her name. She even listed our home for sale while I was still clearing checkpoints overseas. I dug into her phone records, bank activity, even social profiles. Nothing direct. She wasn't that sloppy, but the patterns were there. Restaurant bookings in neighborhoods we'd never visited together. Travel confirmations for two. A new gym, a personal trainer. His name was Clay Jensen. My old CO retired early divorce 3 years ago. I once pulled him out of an ambush in Syria. He used to call me kid. Now he was sleeping in my bed. Luke tracked down Amy's boss, guy named Donovan Wells, mid-40s, rich, smug, untouchable. He'd run 4 companies into the ground, paid his way out of 2 harassment settlements, and now ran a startup focused on emotional wellness. The irony wasn't lost on us. She picked a real winner, Luke muttered. She picked someone who looks like he has power, I said. That's all it takes for some people. He didn't argue. That weekend we drove to our childhood town. Small place, nothing special, but our uncle still lived there, and he owed us favors. Legal ones. Uncle Pete was a former PI. Not the movie kind. Quiet, methodical, invisible when needed. We told him everything. He listened, didn't interrupt, just nodded slowly, then said, "They didn't just cheat, they replaced you while you were still breathing." Exactly. We asked him to pull records, paper trails, surveillance if necessary. Pete didn't ask why. He just said, "Give me 72 hours." Back at the rental, Luke got a call from a mutual friend, one of the few people who still talked to both him and Amy. Her voice was tight. "You should know they've been seeing each other for over a year. She said she was scared to tell you, thought you'd snap." "She's right," Luke said, then ended the call. He didn't throw anything. He didn't scream. He just sat down and stared into the wall for so long, I thought he'd passed out. "I think I still love her," he said finally. I didn't know what to say to that. He wasn't weak, he was just human. And sometimes that's harder to admit than any anger. "We take emotion out of it," I said. "That's how we win." He nodded. By the 3rd day, Pete called us in. "I've got footage," he said. "Clay's been staying at your house, sometimes for nights at a time. Cars registered to a holding company under his name. But more interesting, he recently purchased a plot of land across state lines. Guess whose name's on the lease with him?" I didn't even have to ask. He handed me photos next. Rachel smiling, holding keys, embracing Clay. My son in the background, holding a bag like they were going on vacation. I hadn't even known she'd taken him out of school. "She told the school you gave written permission," Pete said. "Forged signature." I checked. I felt the switch flip inside me. Legal action wasn't about pride now. It was about protection. "She's moving him out of state," I said. "Maybe permanently." Luke wasn't far behind. Pete had uncovered internal messages between Amy and Donovan. Not direct messages. Screenshots forwarded from an assistant who'd been let go last month. They showed plans, promotions, bonuses, suggestions to ease Luke out gradually. Amy had even called Luke, too unstable to grow with, said she was tired of waiting for him to change. He read the messages without blinking, then stood, walked to the sink, and turned on the cold water. He didn't speak for a while. Then, "She wants me gone so bad, she's building the story to make it look like I broke us." I nodded. Then we burned their narrative to the ground. That night we worked, drafted emails, filed temporary custody injunctions, flagged accounts, contacted old friends in military legal who knew how to move fast. The clock was ticking. Luke paused, looked at me. "You think people like them ever feel guilt?" I answered without thinking. "No, they only feel consequences. And we were about to deliver both. 3 weeks. That's how long we had before the custody hearing. 3 weeks to build a case solid enough to hold in court and heavy enough to bury them outside it. The legal system moves slow unless you know which doors to knock on. Fortunately, I did. I met with an old JAG contact, Harper Grant. She'd served with me during a NATO exchange program. Now she specialized in domestic law with a particular hatred for fraud and coercion. She forged your signature and crossed state lines with your kid, Harper said after I laid out the situation. That's not just civil. It flirts with criminal. I don't want her arrested, I said. I want leverage. Good, she said, because that's exactly what this is. She got to work immediately, filing for emergency custody suspension and obtaining a digital audit of Clay's financial activities. He'd been sloppy. He funneled personal expenses through defense contracts and filed false reports to avoid taxes. Classic overreach, Harper said. Arrogance makes people lazy. Luke's case wasn't far behind. Pete had managed to retrieve internal HR complaints against Donovan Wells. Some resolved, some buried. A few involved Amy directly. It created a pattern. Women were promoted quickly, then left just as fast with airtight NDAs. You think she knows what kind of man he is? Luke asked. She does now, I said. She just didn't care before. We weren't chasing revenge. We were applying pressure, legal, financial, reputational. Not to destroy them, but to make sure they couldn't move without consequence. But pressure changes people, especially the ones with something to hide. On day 12, Rachel showed up at the rental. No call, no warning, just a knock, and there she was. She looked at me like she didn't expect to see the person I'd become. Not angry, not broken, just ready. I heard what you're doing, she said. Then you understand why. She hesitated. It's not what you think. No, I asked. You lied to the school, moved our son without telling me, sold assets we bought together. But go ahead. Tell me what I missed. She sat down, like this was a conversation we were going to have as equals. He made promises, she said quietly. Said he'd help get me out, take care of me and Connor, said you wouldn't forgive me anyway. So your plan was to erase me before I got a chance? I was scared. I leaned forward. No, you were selfish, and now you're panicking. She said nothing. I handed her a file. Legal notifications, court motions, evidence, witnesses. I'm not going to fight dirty, Rachel, I said, but I will fight smart. You had a chance to end this with dignity. You chose deception. You're out of options. She didn't cry. That would have been too easy. She stood, folder in hand, and walked out without another word. After she left, I sat alone for a while. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't triumph. It was confirmation. Sometimes justice doesn't feel good. It just feels necessary. Luke had his own encounter the next day. Amy showed up at his work, shaken but not broken. You made your point, she said. HR is breathing down my neck. Donovan's stepping aside for reflection. People are treating me like I'm radioactive. You should have thought of that before you lied, Luke replied. I didn't lie, she snapped. I just didn't tell the full story. That's still a lie. She looked like she wanted to scream but knew it wouldn't help. Why are you doing this? Luke's answer was simple. Because you wanted to end things without consequences. I don't get that luxury. She tried to appeal to their shared history, their years together, the home they built, the promises, but promises don't survive betrayal, only truth does. Pete called later that evening. You might want to see this. He sent a video file. Clay.drunk. Talking to someone in a bar. Saying things a smart man never says on camera. She was married, he laughed. Didn't matter. I knew he wouldn't be back. Soldiers always think they're irreplaceable. Then more damning. The kid's not even really mine, but I've got him calling me dad. If I play this right, I'll have the whole trust in 6 months. She's too guilt-ridden to notice. I played the clip twice, then sent it to Harper. Is this admissible? Depends on the judge, she said. But even if it isn't, we leak it to his investors. That'll kill any deals he's lining up. The pressure was shifting, the balance tilting. People like Clay and Donovan build empires on illusion. But once the curtain drops, even for a second, everything underneath starts to rot. Luke and I met at the diner that night. Getting close, I said. Yeah, he replied. Funny how fast it all unravels when someone pushes back. We didn't toast, didn't celebrate. We just nodded. This wasn't the end, but it was the turning point. We weren't reacting anymore. We were controlling the board. By the time the custody hearing was a week out, the cracks weren't just forming, they were spreading fast. Clay Jensen's face started disappearing from online articles. Social pages wiped. Business partners distancing themselves. The bar video hadn't gone public yet, but Harper had reached out to a few of his investment contacts. Quiet pressure, enough to freeze movement. The kind of warning a man like Clay couldn't ignore. Luke's storm came 2 days later. Amy was removed from the company's leadership team, officially on leave. Internally, sources told him it was worse. A whistleblower report had landed on the board's desk, detailing misconduct, conflicts of interest, and inappropriate promotions, including hers, all backed by documentation Pete had surfaced. "They're lawyering up," Pete texted me. "But it's too late," the chain reaction started. Luke didn't smile when he heard. That wasn't the goal, but I saw something else in his eyes. Stillness. He was finally out of emotional freefall. Meanwhile, Rachel filed a formal objection to my custody motion. No apology, just legal posturing. Her lawyer claimed I was aggressively manipulative and psychologically destabilized by combat exposure. I'd prepared for that. We submitted military psych evaluations, clean dots signed by 2 doctors, plus witness affidavits from neighbors, my CO, and Connor's school counselor, stating my relationship with my son had always been stable, present, and positive. Harper had been right. Rachel was reacting, not planning. She'd made her move too early. Now we controlled the next one. Then something unexpected happened. Connor called me. Not a text, a real call. "Mom said you're trying to take me away," he said. My heart stopped. "No," I replied calmly. "I'm trying to make sure we still have time together. She didn't tell you I asked for shared custody?" Silence. "No," he said quietly. We talked for nearly an hour. About school, friends, a new dog Clay had bought him, a dog I hadn't even heard about. "Do you like living there?" I asked. "Sometimes," he said. "But I don't talk much when Clay's home. He gets mad easy." That was it. Just that sentence. But it told me everything. He was watching his words. Around a man I never approved, who tried to replace me while I was deployed. A man who thought manipulation was parenting. When we hung up, I called Harper. "We're filing an addendum," I said. "Documented concern for child well-being." "You have proof?" "I have reason." "That's enough to request a home visit," she said. "We'll expedite it." At the same time, Luke got a message from an unfamiliar number. It was Amy. She wasn't at her apartment. She wasn't at work. She was at a motel. "Just wanted to see how fast I'd fall," she wrote. "Now I know." He didn't answer. The next morning, she showed up at his door. "I lost everything," she said. "My job, my name, my plan." I was wrong. Luke didn't invite her in. He let her speak. She cried, apologized, said Donovan had already replaced her with someone else, that she finally saw the pattern. "You were a pawn," Luke said. "Just like me. You just didn't care until it hurt you." She didn't argue. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. "I just wanted to face you once. No lies." She left. Luke closed the door. And that was that. We were moving into endgame. Pete called later that week with one final discovery. A property Rachel and Clay had quietly purchased under a shell entity was being flipped. The price markup? 3 times its real value. Classic laundering technique, and illegal if traced to unregistered joint marital assets. "You ready to make this official?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He smiled. "Then we press." We scheduled a mediation meeting. Rachel's lawyer requested it instead of a courtroom brawl. Clay wouldn't be present. He'd already started lawyering up for unrelated charges. Luke attended with me. Support, not spite. The room was tense. Rachel didn't look like a woman in control anymore, just someone waiting for the fall. Her attorney tried negotiating. "We're willing to settle on custody, alternate weeks, holiday rotation, but we'd like the asset freeze lifted." Harper stayed calm. "You mean the freeze on assets likely purchased with misused marital funds?" Rachel stiffened. We're not interested in ruining anyone, I said, but we are interested in transparency. We laid it out. Financial misrepresentation, custody miscommunication, and emotional negligence. I didn't know, Rachel said suddenly, about the shell company. He handled that. I looked at her carefully. Maybe she was lying. Maybe she wasn't. At this point, it didn't matter. You didn't ask, I replied. That's what matters. In the end, the agreement was signed. Joint custody, full oversight, neutral financial review. The war was never going to be won with revenge, only with structure. That night, Luke and I sat outside under the same sky we used to stare at before deployments. You think they regret it? He asked. No, I said. I think they regret being caught. He nodded. And us. I thought about it. I regret trusting the wrong people, I said. But I don't regret fighting to protect what's mine. He raised his glass. To clarity. We drank to that, not peace, but something close enough. The morning of the court's final review, I didn't feel nervous. I felt still, like a man who'd already survived the storm and was walking through the wreckage just to make sure nothing was left burning. The judge read everything. The custody plan, the financial breakdown, the behavioral notes from the counselor who'd interviewed Connor. The feedback was simple. The child was emotionally attached to both parents, but guarded, especially around Clay. That word stuck with me. Guarded. A kid should be open, unafraid, clumsy with feelings. Guarded meant he'd already learned to protect himself from something, or someone. The ruling came just after noon. Shared custody, split holidays, no out-of-state relocation without written approval from both parents, and most importantly, no unsupervised time with Clay. Rachel didn't look at me as the judge finalized it. She didn't need to. She knew. This wasn't about custody anymore. It was about control, and she had lost hers. On the way out, I passed her in the hallway. She stopped. You got what you wanted, she said. No, I replied. I got what Connor deserved. There was no gloating, no vengeance in my voice, just closure. She didn't follow me out. Luke's situation settled in parallel. Amy signed her exit agreement from the company and agreed to a no-contact clause for 6 months. Donovan vanished, resigned for personal reasons. His name wiped clean, but the damage done. Pete's last report showed the startup had quietly collapsed. Investors pulled funding. No one wanted a brand built on manipulation. Amy was out of work, living with her sister, looking for something real for the first time in years. Luke didn't speak to her again. He didn't need to. He focused on rebuilding. Took a part-time coaching gig at the local high school. Started therapy, not because he was broken, but because he didn't want to be. For the first time in years, he was choosing his own path, not trying to fix someone else's. As for me, I took Harper's advice. You need a new routine, she said, not just legally, personally. I moved. Not far, just enough. New neighborhood, new neighbors. Neutral ground. I didn't need a fresh start. I needed solid footing. Connor came over the first weekend after the ruling. Just us. No awkward handoffs, no explanations. We grilled burgers, threw a ball, played old video games. He didn't say much at first, but that was okay. Kids don't open on command. They open when it feels safe. Midway through the weekend, he said something that caught me off guard. I never wanted you gone, he said quietly. I just didn't know how to say it. You don't have to say everything, I told him. You just have to know I'm here. He nodded. Didn't cry, but I saw the weight lift a little. That was enough. Weeks passed. Normal returned. Not the same version, but a better one. Sharper. I saw more clearly what I allowed, what I ignored, what I mistook for love when it was just familiarity. I didn't blame Rachel anymore. Not fully. She made her choices, and I made mine. But I no longer carried the guilt for her decisions. Late one evening, I got a text from Clay's number. Just one sentence. This isn't over. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then deleted the message. He was already finished. Even if he didn't know it yet, I reported it anyway. Let the legal system keep its record. He'd be on a watch list by morning. Luke laughed when I told him. They always threaten when they lose, he said. It's all they've got left. He wasn't wrong. What surprised me most was how quickly life filled the space betrayal had emptied. Not with distraction, with purpose. Harper introduced me to a veterans support network. I started mentoring returning soldiers. Guys like me, who came home to find the world they fought for, had moved on without them. Some were angry, others just tired. But all of them needed something familiar. Not pity, not therapy, just understanding. One day after a group session, a young vet asked me, "How do you forgive them, the ones who left?" I didn't lie. "You don't have to," I said. "You just stop needing their apology." Forgiveness wasn't the goal. Peace was. Rachel tried once more to reach out. A letter. Handwritten, said she hoped one day Connor could understand everything. Said she still had dreams where things hadn't fallen apart. I didn't answer. Not out of spite, just because there was nothing left to say. Some stories don't need a second ending, just a quiet one. That weekend, Connor brought over a school project, family history. He asked about my deployments, wanted to know what it was like to be away. "It was hard," I said, "but coming back to you made it worth it." He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I think I want to be like you." And that, right there, that was the win. Not the court ruling, not Clay's downfall, not Rachel's regret. It was that my son, after everything, still saw me as someone worth becoming. It's been 6 months since the court date. You'd think life after everything would feel quieter. In some ways it does, but not in the way I expected. There's no celebration, no finish line, just space. And in that space, things finally start to breathe. Connor's doing better. He's more open now. There are still moments when he goes quiet without reason, but he always comes back. That's more than I could have hoped for. He started asking harder questions too, the kind no child should have to ask. Why did Mom lie? Why did he treat me like that? I answer honestly but carefully. Some people hurt others to protect their own illusions, I told him, but that doesn't make it okay. It just makes it sad. He didn't say anything after that, but I saw the way he held it, processed it. Not like a kid, but like someone learning how to build his own filter. Luke and I still talk most days. We've changed, both of us. There's less weight in his voice now. He started dating again. Slowly, cautiously. The kind of guy who never thought he'd have to learn how to trust someone twice. But he's doing it anyway. He tells me Amy sent him one more letter, said she's moving to another state, starting over, alone. He didn't write back. I told him that's okay. Not every apology needs to be acknowledged. Some are just markers. The end of a road you don't want to walk again. I still get the occasional call from Rachel. Voicemails mostly. Updates about Connor's schedule. A school event, a doctor's appointment. Nothing personal, just logistics. It works. Boundaries don't heal everything, but they stop new wounds. Harper reached out last week. She's handling a case involving another veteran going through a brutal custody battle. She asked if I'd talk to him. I said yes. The guy was 29, just out. Still in fight mode. Everything was sharp edges, blame, frustration, exhaustion. I gave them everything, he said, and they act like I'm disposable. I knew that feeling too well. You're not disposable, I told him, but the pain makes you believe you are. You have to stop letting betrayal define your identity. He didn't answer right away, just nodded like he wanted to believe me, but wasn't ready. I didn't push. I just gave him my number. Sometimes healing starts when someone doesn't give up on you. Last Sunday, Connor scored the winning goal in his soccer match. He ran straight toward me, arms wide, yelling, "Dad!" like it was the most natural thing in the world. Rachel was there too, on the other side of the field. She clapped, smiled, didn't interfere. She understood now. Connor chose how he divided his heart. No one could script that for him. After the game, he asked if we could stop for milkshakes. "Can Mom come too?" he asked. I paused, not because I was angry, but because I had to check my motives. "Yeah," I said finally, "if she wants to." We sat at a plastic table, drinking in near silence. Not tense, just aware. There were no flashbacks, no bitterness, just three people with a complicated history doing something normal. At one point, Rachel said, "He's happy." I nodded. You've done well with him. So have you, I said, and I meant it. It wasn't forgiveness, not in the cinematic sense, but it was a recognition that not all damage has to end in destruction. Sometimes it just leaves a scar, and you learn to move around it. That night, after dropping Connor off, I sat on the porch with my phone in my hand. A message sat unread in my inbox. From Vanessa, the recruiter I'd met at the game months back. She'd followed up. Coffee. No pressure, just a chance to talk. I hadn't answered, not because I wasn't interested, but because I wasn't sure I was ready to let someone in without handing them a list of things they needed to fix. But maybe she didn't need to fix anything. Maybe I didn't either. I replied, how about this weekend? She responded 10 minutes later. You're buying. That made me smile. Later that week, Luke and I met up at a diner. No plans, just two brothers watching life settle back into place. You ever think about how close we came to letting them break us? He asked. I think about how we didn't let them finish the job, I said. He nodded. We sat in silence for a while. Then he raised his glass. To what comes next. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was surviving anything. I was just living.